Welcome! From time to time I get requests from subscribers to do a tutorial on a particular song. For the most part I tend to take a pass for a couple of reasons. Number one, the song may only have 3 to 6 chords, which makes for a very short and not very interesting tutorial. And secondly, many of the songs requested lack mass appeal. However, at the beginning of this month, I received a request to do a tutorial on a classic song that not only is musically interesting, it certainly has mass appeal. I'm referring to the Nat King Cole classic, Unforgettable. Now, you may recall, with the help of some clever editing, it was reissued as a duet with daughter Natalie Cole long after Nat's passing. Now, any terminology I use in this presentation has been explained fully in previous tutorials. You might click on my tutorial on tutorials and it will guide you to any topic that is discussed in this video or any other presentations I've done. So my friends, without further ado, let's see how this wonderful song was put together. First, let's take a quick look at the first 4 or 5 bars of the sheet music. Then we'll return back here to the piano and do some more follow-up. Right off the top, we are in 1 flat, so this tells us that we are in the key of F. Notice the time signature, cut time. This could be also written as 2 time. First 2 chords are 1 chord. Doesn't make any difference if it's a major 7 or 6, they're interchangeable. But we run into something very interesting here, an F diminished chord, which does not belong in the key of F. The A flat, the minor third, puts this diminished chord into a first inversion for no other reason than that A flat is going to fall a half step down onto G minor, the 2 chord. The best way I could give a number to this chord would be to call it a flat 3 chord alternative. The E7 is a possibility because E is one of 4 possible acoustic roots for an F diminished chord. The E would be the acoustic root of the F diminished chord. So therefore the F diminished chord and the E7 are interchangeable because the F diminished chord is an extension of the E7 chord. The E7 chord would be called a 5 of 3. Doesn't necessarily have to go to 3, but that's what we would call it. If I use the E7, I would probably put it into a first inversion with the A flat that's going to fall onto the G minor. You may ask, why not a G sharp, because that is, after all, the third of E. Well, sharps have a tendency to rise, flats usually fall, and it just kind of leads the musician down to where you really want it to go. All right, let's start Unforgettable using some block chords. So there is my F diminished chord with the A flat in the bass. For that matter, I could have called it an A flat diminished chord, since diminished chords are an equal division of the octave. Diminished chords usually resolve by a half step, in this case onto the G minor chord, the 2 chord in F. Now I mentioned on the sheet music that we could have used an acoustic root, the E, which is available too, an F diminished and an A flat diminished and so on and so forth, and it would have sounded like this. G sharp in the bass, probably relabeled as a flat, so we get the falling onto the 2 minor chord, the G minor. You know, come to think of it, another possibility for an acoustic root would be the D flat. Now, acoustic roots are discussed in my tutorial, diminished chords, where's the root? So let's try with the D flat chord, see what you think. kind of nice. It's a D flat 7 with an augmented ninth put into a second inversion, A flat again at the bottom, falling to the 2 chord. So let's head back to the sheet music and finish off with the first verse. Then moving right along, we come to a G9 sus chord. This would be called a 5 of 5 and F, which should take us to a C7 chord. Whether it's a sus resolved, still a 5 of 5. However, Mr. Gordon decides that, no, I don't think I'm going to stay in the key of F. I'm going to do a little bit of parallel harmony and go down by whole tones. A G, whole tone down to an F, whole tone down to an E flat, which nicely puts us into the key of B flat. Won't be any key signature change. It's still in 1 flat, but make no mistake about it, we're in the key of B flat. Why? Because this would be the 4 chord in B flat, going to a 4 minor chord, and bingo, right on to the 1 chord in B flat. Or the substitute chord, the 3 chord. Interchangeable, because if I were to put a B flat at the bottom of this D minor 7, that would make that chord a B flat major 9. So these two guys, the 3 chord and the 1 chord, as you know, are interchangeable. If I go with the B flat chord, I would possibly put that into a 3rd inversion, the 7th at the bottom, for no other reason for to have that fall onto the G7 chord. And speaking of G7, that has absolutely nothing to do with either key. Don't find a G7 in the key of F, and you certainly don't find it in the key of B flat. All these chords here can be considered pivot chords. Why? Because I could be looking at this B flat chord as a 4 chord in F, and I could be looking at the D minor as a 6 chord in F. This chord could be looked at as a 5 of 2 in the key of B flat, which is the 2 chord, or if we're staying in the key of F, it could be looked at as a 5 of 5 in the key of F. So a G7 going to a C7. So the G7 takes us to the C7, which is the 5 chord in F. And our composer has a little bit of a situation here because he's got 4 bars to kill before he returns to the key of F. So he does a little killing device by doing an exact parallel harmony of a B7 to an E. These are the same structures, a B7 to a C7, and look at the melody, the D sharp, 3rd of B, to the E, the 3rd of C7. So that's an exact parallel harmony. Gives us a little time to then go to our 5 chord, which is split between a 2 and to a 5, which will take us into F. Possibly you might consider doing a flat 2 chord, which will also take us into F. I'll now play through the first verse with a little commentary. Okay, here we are on the 2 chord, the G minor. G7 sus to a G7. In the key of F, that would be considered the 5, which more than likely would take me to there, and the 5 chord would take me back to the tonic chord. However, we know the composer has different ideas. He wants to now move us into the key of B flat. Cleverly, he just does a whole tone walk down the E flat chord. E flat is the 4 chord of B flat, which is now our new 1 chord, the new key we're in. And 4 chords at times like to go to minor. And 4 minors, you may recall in other tutorials, tend to like to go back to the tonic 1 chord. No exception here. We'll go back to the B flat. Through a contrapuntal 7th, the A flat, to fall onto the G7 chord. The G7 would actually represent the 5 of C minor in the key of B flat, and if the composer decided to go there, it would have sounded like. Setting up the 5 and onto the 1 chord. However, no such luck. The composer wants to get back into the key of F. So here we are. He's now reinterpreted this G7 chord as more or less a pivot chord to get us back into the key of F. So the G7 is going to take us to the C7. Well, guess what? It's the 5 chord in the key of F. As I mentioned when we were talking about the sheet music, it kind of rides on the 5 chord a little prematurely because the next chord is going to be 1 and he needs to kill a little more time. So he does a very clever thing. It's just a nice little touch. It does exact parallel harmony as I mentioned on the sheet music, B7, and then stepping up half step to C7. It's a nice little time killer. And then 2, 5, back onto the 1 chord. Or he could have used the G minor, going to a G flat, flat 2, and onto the 1 chord. Now there's no bridge in this song, so let's look at the last verse in coda on the sheet music. So as I mentioned, there is no bridge in the song or release, so the song just goes around again. Key of F, 1 chord, our diminished chord, flat 3, or the E7, which will take us to the G minor chord, the 2 chord, and on to the 5 of 5. And again, the same parallel harmony down whole tones onto the E flat, putting us nicely into the key of B flat. So our 4 chord, 4 minor, I could have gone to B flat, they decided to go to the 3 chord, and then we go to the G7. But this time, since the composer is planning not to leave B flat and remain there and actually end the song in the key of B flat, he's using this G7 as a 5 of 2, 5 of C minor in B flat. When we get down to C7 chord, it's not a 2 chord. He changes that into a dominant chord, so this would be called a 5 of 5, going to, of course, the 5 chord, and the 5 chord taking us into the 1 chord, thus ending the song. Now, it'd be a very short song if you only played it through once, so you would probably want to at least go through it another time anyway, with perhaps some variations. So, more than likely, the arranger would probably turn this into a 2 chord in F to a G minor 7 or 9, C7 or 9 or 11 or whatever you want. So this would be the 5, and this would take us back to F, and we'd circle around again, coming back down. So the song actually starts in the key of F, ends up ending and finishing in the key of B flat. A little schmaltzy, what the heck. That's my 4 chord, minor. This time I'll use the 3 chord, the D minor. appoggiatura here. Or we might have done a little more elaboration at the end. C7, the 5 of 5. Up to the 5. How about a deceptive cadence to the 4 chord, the E flat. Down to the flat 3 chord, the D flat. Down another whole tone to C flat. On sheet music, they'd probably call it a B chord. And falling onto the tonic 1 chord. Well, that's a wrap. I hope everybody enjoyed my little tutorial on Unforgettable. Thank you, Lou, for that suggestion. Don't forget to subscribe. Keep safe. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day. Bye for now.